1981. At this location in Tempe was the Finance America Corporation. 5'4", 25-year-old Brenna Jean Bailey worked there as an assistant manager. She had worked her way up to the position after starting as a clerk. She spent most of her time at the office where she processed consumer loans, but was also assigned to collect delinquent accounts a couple times a month, which sometimes involved her going to residences if she couldn't reach them by phone. In the evenings, she took finance classes at Mesa Community College. On Wednesday, April 29th at 8:30 in the morning, Brenna got into her car and left Finance America, heading to the homes of two customers who were delinquent on their loans. Whenever Brenna went to the homes of customers who had delinquent accounts, she would always follow up with her boss, Buck Buchanan, afterwards, letting him know how it went, where she was, and just her overall status. Each day she would speak to her fiancé Marvin Riggsby throughout the day and check in with him as well. Around 3:30, Marvin grew concerned when he hadn't heard from Brenna. So he called the office and he spoke to Buck, and to his shock, Buck hadn't heard from her either. Marvin asked for it and was given the addresses for both of the locations that Brenna was scheduled to go to that day. Marvin headed to the first location, which was here, at this home in Tempe, near 34th Avenue and Walletta. This was around 5:30 in the afternoon, and when he knocked on the door, a man and woman answered. When he inquired about Brenna, the man said that she did come over around 10 o'clock and left around 10:30. Marvin then went to this home, the other location. A woman there said that she had been home all day, and no one had stopped by. Brenna never returned to the office and never came home that evening. Marvin notified police and filed a missing persons report. He gave them the information that he had obtained and told them about going to both locations and what he was told by the residents who lived there. At this location at Van Buren and 34th Avenue was, in 1981, a place called the Low Cost Market. And the very next day after Brenna went missing, there was an asphalt paving crew that had been working in the parking lot. And they notified the manager of the Low Cost Market about a smell that was coming from the car. He went out and approached the vehicle, and he immediately recognized the smell as that of a dead body due to having served in the Vietnam War. He looked through the window and saw a pair of panties and women's shoes on the back seat. He went back into the market and called police. Homicide detectives arrived on scene, and they pried open the trunk where they found the body of Brenna Jean Bailey. He was wrapped in a bedsheet, wearing a blouse, naked from the waist down. The bedspread was covered in blood with green carpet tufts on it, along with sponge padding and long red hairs. The vehicle was determined to be Brenna Jean Bailey's, and it was later confirmed that she had been raped. Her skull had been crushed from repeated blows to the head with a garden hoe. Police were able to obtain a search warrant for the Summerlin home, and at 5:30 in the afternoon, they executed it. There they seized a pair of bloody men's boots, carpeting and padding from inside the home, bloody floor tiles, and a hoe with hair on it, which was by a door outside the home. After he had been read the search warrant, Summerlin said, "I didn't kill nobody." When the detective didn't say anything back to him, Summerlin then said, "Is this in reference to the girl that was at my house?" The detective asked him, "What girl?" Summerlin said, "The lady that came to the house about 10 o'clock in the morning. Reference to my wife's piano." He was then read his rights and taken into custody. Summerlin's wife confirmed that the bedspread that Brenna Jean Bailey's body had been wrapped in belonged to them. At the station, Warren spoke with his wife and made some incriminating statements, which included telling her, "I knew this had to happen." And his wife said, "What do you mean?" He responded, "That was the big crime. I don't like to pay bills and all that other bullshit." He also told her not to worry because police wouldn't find anything at the house. Summerlin was booked on investigation of first-degree murder. He was held without bond. Warren Summerlin was 34. He was unemployed and had previously done time and was on probation at the time. A plea deal was offered to Summerlin to plead guilty to second-degree murder and serve around 21 years, but it was rejected by the judge as being too lenient, so that plea was withdrawn. I like this judge. Because of this, Summerlin was charged with first-degree murder, and a new judge would preside over the trial, which took place in June of 1982. Marvin Riggsby testified that he and Brena were to be married during the summer of 1981. Brena had visited the Summerlin home to inquire about their delinquent account. They had taken a $1,600 loan to purchase a piano. When Brenna Jean Bailey's body was found, it was later determined after detectives spoke with Summerlin's wife that the bedsheet was theirs, but specifically, the bedsheet belonged to Summerlin's 10-year-old stepdaughter. She testified and confirmed it was hers. This absolute piece of shit. Carpet fibers found in Brenna's vaginal area were matched to carpet at Summerlin's home. On Tuesday, June 8, 1982, a jury found Warren Summerlin guilty of first-degree murder and sexual assault. In July, Judge Philip Marquardt sentenced him to death for her murder and 28 years for the sexual assault. He ruled that the crime was committed in a cruel, heinous, or depraved manner, and that Summerlin had prior convictions involving violence. He appealed the decision to the Arizona Supreme Court, but it was upheld. This whole thing had enough storylines and drama to give All My Children a run for its money. For starters, 4 days before the pre-trial hearing in December of 1981, the prosecutor and Warren Summerlin's defense attorney slept together after meeting at a Christmas party. They're the ones who came up with the plea deal for Warren to plead guilty to second-degree murder and only spend 21 years in prison. Both were removed from the case and reassigned. Then in 1988, the judge who sentenced Summerlin to death, Judge Philip Marquardt, was arrested at a Houston airport for bringing marijuana into the country. He was arrested by customs agents when he arrived in Houston after a vacation in Mexico. He was convicted in Texas of a misdemeanor for marijuana possession and was fined $500 and was given a suspended jail sentence. He was suspended for 1 year in Arizona without pay and fined. At the next election, he was retained as an Arizona judge. In 1991, Judge Philip Marquardt was arrested when a package containing marijuana was delivered to his home. His daughter's boyfriend accepted it at the home, and he was arrested, but then Marquardt admitted that he had been the one who had arranged for the marijuana to be delivered to his home, and he was taken into custody. Marquardt admitted that he was addicted to marijuana, and he did resign as a Maricopa County Superior Court judge, ending a 20-year career. Questions arose as to how long the judge had been using marijuana, and whether or not he was under the influence during any trials that he presided over. In 1995, the judge who presided over the pre-trial hearing for Summerlin said that he would have granted Summerlin's request for a new attorney had he been aware of the sexual encounter between the defense attorney and the prosecutor assigned to the case. Summerlin and the judge were both unaware of it at the time. Because of this, Summerlin's attorney would file documents that same year seeking a new trial, which included an affidavit about the sexual encounter. Also included in the documents, his appellate attorney charges that Judge Philip Marquardt was incompetent as the trial judge because he was a frequent marijuana user at the time. A police informer in the Marquardt case said that the former judge had been using marijuana since 1975. And finally, in 2002, the U.S. Supreme Court made a ruling that affects death penalty cases. They ruled that having judges decide aggravating factors that can result in the death penalty after the jury was dismissed violated the constitutional right to a fair trial. Under a rewritten state law, juries, not judges, decide the aggravating factors and whether a defendant should die. After this ruling, some death penalty cases that were not considered final were reversed. A criminal case is considered final after the state's highest court has reviewed it on appeals. In 2003, the Ninth U.S. Circuit Court of Appeals threw out the death penalty sentence in Warren Summerlin's case. In 2004, the Supreme Court reversed the Ninth Circuit Court's decision and reinstated his death sentence. In 2005, Summerlin was granted a new trial because they said his defense attorney did not adequately investigate his mental deficiency or family history as mitigating factors to present to the judge before sentencing. In 2008, Warren Summerlin was resentenced to life in prison with no chance of parole for 25 years, but even if he was paroled, he must still serve an additional 28 years for sexual assault. He couldn't have been sentenced to life without parole because the punishment did not exist at the time of the murder. Warren Wesley Summerlin remained in prison until his death on June 9th, 2021. The cause of death is unknown. Brenna Jean Bailey was 25 at the time of her death. She had been married once before, and at the time of her death, she had been divorced for 2 years. She graduated from Chandler High School in 1974 and attended Mesa Community College. She had been born in Nebraska and came to Arizona in 1974. She was survived by her parents, 2 sisters, 2 brothers, and her grandparents, and her fiancé, Marvin. She is buried at the Valley of the Sun Mortuary and Cemetery in Chandler, Arizona. In the months that followed Brenna's murder, her fiancé Marvin Riggsby couldn't eat, couldn't sleep, and couldn't leave his house. One person who was by Marvin's side through the tragedy was Brenna's friend, 21-year-old Brenda Gleason. She was an emergency room clerk at a Tempe hospital. Marvin and Brenda comforted each other and provided hope, encouragement, and support for one another. Brenda attended Summerlin's trial when she could. Her and Marvin spent a lot of time together and began dating, and they fell in love. After the trial, they could look forward to a future together. They planned to be married in early 1983. On Sunday, October 10th, 1982, months after the trial ended, Marvin and Brenda attended a barbecue at the home of their friends, the Branhams, who were having the barbecue for their relatives and friends. Sometime after 5 in the afternoon, Shirley Branham and Brenda were talking about a home nearby that Marvin helped remodel. The two women decided to take a short walk to the home and look at it. A little after 6, as they were walking back on the northern shoulder of the road in the 1700 block of West Southern, a car came racing down the street and veered from the pavement, slamming into both women from behind. Brenda flew into a canal next to the road. Her neck, leg, several ribs were broken. Shirley got up from the ground and attempted to reach Brenda while limping in the process. The car continued on, not attempting to slow down. Brenda was given CPR, which kept her alive until the ambulance arrived and took both women to the hospital. Passers-by chased the car for about a mile before the car got away. They were able to follow long enough to get the license plate. A witness said she saw the car swerve to hit the women. Other witnesses also said there was a passenger in the car. The vehicle was described as a 1968 maroon Ford. Shirley Branham was treated for a broken leg and released, despite their efforts to save her. At 7:37 that evening, Brenda Gleason died. The next day, late Monday morning, 39-year-old Socorro Rodriguez was arrested and booked into Maricopa County Jail. He told police he couldn't recall being involved in an accident. He said he couldn't remember anything between 4 p.m. Sunday to Monday morning when he woke up. Socorro was a Mexican national who had been in Phoenix about a year. Rodriguez was arrested at a place called Agricultural Products, which is where he worked as a laborer. Police didn't think he did it intentionally, as according to the witnesses, the car continued to swerve and weave after hitting both victims. Socorro's car was examined and had damage to the right front end, hood, and fender. One of the victims was eating apple pie, and there was apple pie splattered all over the front end of the car, Phoenix detective Tom Lansing said. And according to the Arizona Prison Inmate Database, Socorro Rodriguez was sentenced to 5 years in prison for manslaughter, entering in January of 84, but he was released in November of 85. In 1982, this powerful article appeared in the Arizona Republic by Susan Leonard about Marvin Riggsby and describes what he had gone through, losing 2 fiancées in such a short amount of time. It starts out, 18 months ago, Marvin Riggsby experienced the unbelievable. His fiancée, Brena, was raped and murdered. On Sunday, his tragedy became unimaginable. His second fiancée, Brenda, was run over and killed by a speeding car. Riggsby is quoted as saying, "I'd like to just go to sleep and wake up and find out it's all a bad dream, but I know that won't happen. It's really hard. Unbelievable is not the word. I don't know how to describe it. I'm only going to live for a day at a time. No, a moment at a time." So sad. Brenda Jolene Gleason was 21 at the time of her death. She was born in Iowa and came to Arizona 2 years before she was killed. She was survived by her mother, 3 sisters, a brother, and her fiancé, Marvin. She is buried at Scranton Township Cemetery in Scranton, Iowa.